Hi, how are
Hey,
you?
what's going on?
Not much. Thanks for this little reschedule. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, totally. All good. I was actually curious about Greece is the word. How did it go yesterday?
It was good. It was like more of an influencer sort of event actually. So it was
Oh,
cool
cool.
because they took over this whole like restaurant and everything. I can't say too much, but you guys will see on my Instagram story later today. So
Yeah, yeah.
tune in.
I saw the Greece musical here in Vancouver at the QE Theater, and it was like so good. Like it's just such an iconic. You know what I mean? Like it's in our blood.
Yeah, no, for sure. This is like a reboot. So it's kind of the next generation. So we'll
Yeah,
see how it does. Cause I mean, obviously the film has a built in following. So I'm sure it'll have some relative success.
yeah. I'm getting things ready to chat with you, and I'm like, how long have we known each other? It's got to be 10 years, eh?
Probably just like in and around like the Vancouver media circle at this point. I
Yeah,
know time flies.
I know it's crazy. Like, how long have you been in LA?
I've been in LA on and off actually since I was in university because my
Oh,
family owns the wax museum here. So we founded
what?
it.
What?
Yeah, so my great uncle, so we have a lot of family down here. So I actually interned at CBS like 2010 to 2011,
Oh,
and
wow.
then went back to Vancouver, and then that's when I started with CTV, moved to Toronto, and
Mhm.
came back to Vancouver, and then I moved back to LA in 2019, but then went back and worked remote during COVID, and then back full time as of last summer.
Mm. So are you a lifer
So
there now, or are you gonna come back to Canada anytime, or
I don't think so. I'm going for
yeah,
my green card now, so I don't think like I'll
yeah,
be returning back at any point. So we'll see, unless the green card gets denied, which is entirely possible because
sure.
immigration is not a great time in the US. So that was why I was back for so long because I was getting my O1 visa. So just dealing with all of the paperwork to do with that.
Ah, because
Yeah,
yeah,
costly and expensive.
you're just kicking so much ass right now in Hollywood. Like, so tell us, like, what the hell? Senior editor, Hollywood life, like, how do you score that gig? And like, I'm sure there's tons of people who are gonna be, I want that job.
It's a story. So Bonnie Fuller was one of my teenage idols, and I'm sure you're aware that she's also Canadian. She's
Yeah.
a legend from the Six from Toronto. And to me, like she was really the blueprint, right? Like she was one of the first editors to really go to New York, make it big, establish a name for herself. So for those of you who aren't familiar with her, she started as the editor in chief of Flair and then moved to New York. And among many of her accolades, she launched Marie Claire in the US. She was editor in chief of Cosmo. She also birthed Us Weekly as we know it. So if you ever catch yourself saying stars, they're just like us, that was Bonnie. And I'm very much of that like Us Weekly generation. So I grew up reading Bonnie's letters from the editor and magazines that my mom had, and then obviously became a reader myself during the Us era. And then after that, she went and sort of rebranded Star Magazine. So I was really just a fan. It was someone who like I had greatly admired and in high school had kind of set this goal, like one day I need to at least meet this woman, if not work with her.
Mhm.
And during the 2010 Winter Olympics, actually heading into the gold medal game, I was 19. I had followed Bonnie on Twitter and I had been interning during the Olympics, and she actually followed me back. Years later, I found out it's because she's such a sports fan. So she was curious about like what was going on from someone on the ground. So our initial relationship actually started when I was in university as a college student, basically on Twitter. And I was going to a conference. Over the years, we had DM'd and kind of developed a bit of a rapport that way. But I was
Mhm.
going to a conference in New York. So I thought, I'm just going to see if she would actually meet up with me. I think it would be just so fantastic to meet her. She's bucket list for me. And she responded right away and said, yes, I would love to do breakfast this time, this date. The funniest story was I like wasn't really 100% sure about going to the conference. Like I had a media pass. It's a create and cultivate conference. So people in the influencer and creative spaces would know it. And it ended up being one of the best trips. So that was where we met in person. The job offer actually didn't come until about 2 years after that. And it was just a matter of like keeping in touch with her, kind of letting her know what I was looking for. But I also knew, I would have to tread lightly just because I needed that support with the visa. And I'm so immensely grateful that Bonnie helped me out with that. But I'm also just grateful that it was actually through her and I had this opportunity to get to know her and work with her because she's been my boss now for the last 3 years.
Mm. And like, how crazy is that? That's the world that we live in. Like, it's straight up. You just
Mhm.
shoot a message. have the initiative and the drive to, get the ball rolling. And at that point, it's just a matter of keeping up and keeping up. But, like back in the day, back to when you were talking about those early days of what she was doing, you're trying to find a postal code, you're maybe getting her on the phone. There's none of this back and forth on social media. Like it's pretty impressive with the time we live in right now. Hey?
I agree. And I think what's interesting about that initial interaction that we had, that was within a year or two of Twitter launching. So this was like very, very early social media days, because that would have been in February 2010. So it's it was quite the journey and quite the path. But again, I just knew as a Canadian wanting to move back and work in the US that, you have to have a connection, you have to have a relationship with someone, because you're right, these jobs in this industry is very competitive. And I actually have had that happen to me where I've had a fantastic job offer. I'll just say what it was. It was a senior editor role at People magazine. And I had agreed to the job on a Friday and it was taken away on a Tuesday, all because I'm Canadian. So I've definitely seen the other side of it as well. So yeah, I mean, it's been a journey, it's been a ride, and Bonnie's a hoot. There's not a day that goes by that she doesn't crack me up. But it's been really just awesome getting to work with her and getting to know her.
Oh, that's super cool. So is there an average day for you then?
I don't really feel like there is, because I think like in this space, everything changes so quickly on a day-to-day basis, right? So like there's days where certainly there's a lot of breaking news, and I'm very much at the desk. We do work from home now, and I'm managing, a team of writers remotely. There's days where I'm writing more. And then obviously you see me on social media, and there's days where it's like, hey, well, there was 4 events today, and I was kind of bopping around to all of these different events with my laptop. So I think one thing that I like about the industry is that there's sort of that like zest of variety. Like there's, no 2 days are the same. And I just think even with the events, they can all vary, right? Like there's days where there's like red carpets and those start more late afternoon. And then there's days where there's brand events that are, very influencer celebrity heavy, and those will start later in the evening. But the beauty and the fashion brands love to do like a beautiful brunch or lunch situation. So I'm like the event queen. I feel like it's hard pressed for me to say no to
Well,
an event, because it's really why I'm in the industry and what I love to do.
totally, right? Like that has to be the best part of the job is the events. It has to be.
100%. And you know what it is about the events? It's like, I love an immersive marketing experience. Like I'm a total nerd for that type of thing, like looking at the place cards and looking at the gift bags and looking at the invite and all of these things. But I will say that after having done it for so long, what it really is about the events is it's the 3 people that you maybe meet that you still talk to 5 years later.
Sure.
And the relationships and the friendships and even the mentor type relationships that I have developed out of going to these types of events over the last course of a decade, I would not be where I am today without those people. And, whether it was just one person sending an intro to someone else, someone acting as a reference for you, someone giving you a valuable piece of advice, or even just someone who made you laugh in an event that was maybe kind of boring, like these things all I feel like have shaped who I am. So I'm just so grateful to that network, because, I was going to a lot of events down here when I was still at CTV. And ultimately it was that 2 years of networking and those people that also were helpful in me convincing Bonnie to help me out with the official move.
Mm-hmm. You're saying that, I'm thinking like that's the drive that like not many people have. Like you know what I mean? Like as a teacher at BCIT and
Mm-hmm.
watching the determination and initiative and all that, like not everybody goes down the same path.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not everybody takes that time to send an email or go to an event or keep in touch with people that they've met over the years. And like, so good on you, because like not everybody does that.
I think you're totally right. And I would say for me, I think, sometimes I feel like I'm not someone who's particularly good at anything. Like I'm a good writer. I'm not the best writer. I'm okay on air. I'm not the best person at that. But I think what sets me apart from the pack is that I understand relationships and I understand people. And that's very much a product of coming from a social networking focused family. Like I'm a third generation of this. And, it's funny, like going to a family dinner with my grandparents who are 90 and 91 now, they'll be going on about their UBC days and, people that they knew and how that sort of will connect back to the circle today. So I feel like it starts with them, went down to my dad, my uncle, and my aunt, and then down to me. And I feel like I'm very much a product of them and their success in that realm, because these people love an event too. So I wouldn't be who I am today also without them. And I think like I've been able to sort of apply that DNA into the media and entertainment space. And I think a successful way, because like I said, my network, I feel like just always continues to pay off and is ultimately, the people opening doors.
Well, I mean, this is the reason why I'm able to do the podcast for as long as I have. Like, this is my 9th year now. You think like, 20 years in radio, sure, but I could have not done the networking. You know what I mean? I could have just been like, I'm the guy you hear on CFOX in the afternoon, and left it at that. But I was very aware of, trying to help out promotions. Like, you don't always have to book the bands for me. I can do that as well. I can book my guests, and I'm super glad that I did that, right? Like, so obviously then you've always, kept up with pop culture through your whole life.
100%.
And if I were to ask you, and people fucking hate this, but what's your highlights from the last 3 years of working with Hollywood Life?
Oh gosh,
So hard to pick though, right?
That's why. So hard to pick. I would say certainly, and I just said this yesterday, I think I had the best Oscars year that I've ever had this past February. And the reason I think that is because that was a culmination of 5 years of networking and efforts all coming together. I still had to hustle to get into some of the big events, but at the same time, I feel like I had more access than I ever had. So it was kind of everything coming together in one neat bow, which started with my time at CTV and then, obviously paused during COVID and then picked back up. So certainly this past year, just with regards to getting to do the Elton John party, getting to do an Omega cocktail party, the Women in Film event, there was just some really, really good highlights this past year for that. I love saying past year when it was really like a month ago. So that would have been a major one. For me, like a life highlight truly, and you can laugh, has been just getting to know and working with Bonnie. Like, I can't even tell you, it says in my high school yearbook that was my dream, to one day work for Bonnie Fuller. And I do. And it's hilarious because sometimes my phone will ring and I'll see it's Bonnie Fuller call incoming. And I'm like, who the fuck are you that Bonnie Fuller is calling you? So, it's
and
like,
she's
it's
super cool too, right? Like
and she's cool. I mean, yeah. So, and like I said, we get along really well. So, that for me was so bucket list. Like I cannot stress that enough. And again, people can laugh at me, but it's true. And I feel like I manifested that. So do you feel like ultimately it was meant to be that Bonnie helped me with my immigration and was kind of the one to like get me to LA full time again. So those are certainly two of them. I'm trying to think and honestly, I feel like the people have been a really big highlight. I've certainly met just some friends for life through my colleagues that have effectively become family. And I think that they've made going to work every day really fun and a positive environment. So, if it weren't for them, I don't think like I would have lasted here so long. But obviously just because we enjoy working together, that makes going to work every day that much more interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. And so, what would your 13-year-old self think of where you are today? Like, what did you want to do as a kid?
All I wanted to do was go to celebrity parties, Todd.
So
like I was obsessed. Like I remember I would sit there and I would be like, this Vanity for Oscar party. How do you get in there? How do you do this? And I think I started doing it fairly early on. Like I had an aunt that, or she still does. So my dad's younger sister works in the film industry. So the first ever celebrity party I ever went to was actually the new Addams Family wrap party. I was 8 years old, and it was right after the Backstreet Boys World Tour. So this was like my second ever concert. I don't know if you remember, but like back in '98, Spice Girls, Janet Jackson, and Backstreet Boys all played in the same week at GM Place. I
Okay.
still don't understand that. It was like crazy, but I went to all three, and those were my first ever three concerts.
Wow.
So I remember that was my first time ever seeing people in person. My uncle was an actor, very successful working actor, Sean Campbell. So that was my first time ever being at an event where I had seen people in real life that I knew from TV. And I just thought that was like the cat's ass and the coolest experience. So by the time I got to high school, I feel like I was a very good kid, but the only thing that I ever did that was like air quotes bad is I skipped school to go to a couple tapings in LA, and one of them was the American Idol finale. So I was actually there when Ruben Studdard won. The way that I pulled this off was crazy though. Like I was on like the oneiota.com and I had tickets, but I had to change the date because I only had like the 1 week off for spring break or whatever, with the 2 weeks off. So I think I told my mom I was going on a school trip, but I had to secretly like booked a flight to LA, took off, and like no one knew. Like it's insane to me that I pulled that off, and I pulled that off twice. And somehow just like gift of the gab at like 16 years old, like got into the after party. Another one randomly that I was at was like the Days of Our Lives 40th anniversary, which still like cracks me up. Again, I was like 16. So I was very much like figuring that out already when I was in high school. And then by the time I got to university, and of the Lauren Conrad, the Hills era. So it was all about the internships. And I was like the intern queen. I think I did 6 different ones. So when I was 13, it was just very much like, okay, I want to go to these events. I would love to meet these people. How is it that I get there? And I was already thinking about it back then.
That's crazy.
It is wild.
Do you ever get like mistaken for a celebrity?
I've had people tell me that I sound a lot like Kourtney Kardashian, and I'll take it because she's one of my favorite celebrities and easily my favorite Kardashian. I think we are a little bit both curmudgeon-y and have a lot in common. So she sometimes seems a little grumpier than me, but I'll take it. So I would say she's the biggest one. And I've had people turn around at parties just hearing my voice being like, oh my God, I thought Kourtney was at this party.
Interesting.
Very, but I've yet to actually meet her in person. So.
Oh, you haven't? Oh.
I haven't met her in person. She has a Coachella party though next week, and I after we get off this call, my first order of business is I'm emailing to see if I can get it. So maybe the meeting is about to happen in 10 days. We'll see.
That's rad. What is the big buzz right now in Hollywood?
It seems like it's all about Coachella. Everyone's getting ready for festival season. I cannot keep up with the emails to do with the gifting suites for that. So that's on the industry side. In terms of like the headline and gossip side, I do feel like there's a lot of speculation about what's going on with Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez, and if there's like trouble in paradise, which I don't think there is. I think it's just tabloids kind of running with it. Sure. And another really quite shocking headline, frankly, is Reese Witherspoon's divorce. I don't think anyone saw that one coming. So a lot of speculation about what has gone on there, because they seemed like they were relatively happy and living a low-key life with their son in Nashville. So just goes to show you never know what's going on behind closed doors.
Yeah, like the Will Smith and his wife.
Like, that too.
Whoa. Where did that come from? Like, and publicly, and of course the Chris Rock slap, and like, what, I know that's old news, but what did you think of that when that happened? Like, that had to rock your world.
My jaw was on the floor. Like, I could not believe as I was watching it happen. I was like, at first I was like, is this a sketch? Why is he getting out of his seat?
Right. And even afterwards, I was like, is that like, did we just get played? Like, was that planned?
It was so bizarre. And the way that Chris played it off was brilliant. Like, to be that quick on your feet, laugh it off and keep going while you're live on the air in front of millions of people, like that is a skill that not a lot of people have. I mean, honestly, like my jaw was just agape. Like I could not believe. And then I just remember I was watching with my grandparents because I was in Vancouver at the time, and I was like, did that actually just happen? And they were like, we're confused. So it was like kind of going on Twitter after that and being like, wow, that actually just happened. The fallout from that has been crazy still. I mean, obviously there's been a lot of apologies and a lot of back and forth, but I still don't approve, I
No,
mean,
same.
getting out of your seat and clocking someone in the face is just a no bueno,
Just
any day of the
garbage
week.
over words, like, really? Garbage.
Yeah, over words. And he's a comedian, right? Like, I also think too, if you're Will Smith and you're Jada Pinkett Smith, you're public figures and you're putting yourself out there.
Mhm.
So that is part of what comes with that world, unfortunately, right? So if you don't like it, then maybe you shouldn't be famous,
Well, even for the
right?
Will
Like,
Smith stands, like, dude, you're also a comedian. Like, you don't get that? That's the territory, bud.
right. I actually kind of forgot that he is, but you're right. He comes from the sitcom world. That's how he started. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like, dude. But in terms of just like Will and Jada as well, like I think, obviously, again, yes, they're public figures, but they've also shared a significant amount about their relationship and struggles that they've had in their relationship and have spoken about that
Mhm.
prior to this incident happening. So it's like you can't then expect that someone like a Chris Rock is not going to use that in material. It comes with the territory, right?
And like, pretty minor what he said, like, take a joke.
Yeah, take a joke. I mean, obviously alopecia is a serious issue and like, no one's making light of, the health condition. The way that I kind of saw it was like, it was a movie reference to Demi Moore, who I think looks absolutely incredible in that movie. So that was how I took it. But
Mhm.
obviously there was a whole other layer to it, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I still watch Red Table Talk though. I'm a fan. I do tune into that show on, when it's airing on Facebook on a weekly basis. And I do like them, but yeah, I just feel like that whole situation was still shocking to this day.
Yeah, agreed. So what are you binging lately? What are the best series in your life right now?
My favorite show is definitely Succession. I
Oh,
just don't think anyone does it better than them and those crazy
I
Roys. So
haven't seen it yet. I've got it on my watch list. I'm just ripping into Yellowstone. I'm behind the times. I'm just trying to catch up and keep up.
so that's like really the big show for me that I will actually, make time for and watch. So that is my plan actually next week. I haven't gotten to season 4 yet, but I just love everything about it. I feel like it's like an elevated soap opera. So as a kid who like kind of grew up watching Young the Restless and then, watching this, I feel like it's like that, but like above and beyond.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just think like the way that they've written the interconnected family dramas, yeah, even though they're billionaires, it's like so relatable to everyone. And just like quirky characters that again we all have in our families. So that's for sure my number one. Interestingly, and it's funny you asked me this question, I was such a TV queen up until like 2016. And then something happened and I just stopped watching as much TV as I do. But I did also watch White Lotus seasons 1 and 2 over Christmas, and I absolutely loved that show. I mean, Jennifer Coolidge is a queen. And another one that I actually really enjoyed was Wednesday because I just thought it was
Yeah.
like combining so many different things from like that whimsical sort of teenage world. So it was almost like a Harry Potter vibe. Yet there was the nostalgia of the Addams family. And then obviously one of my first celebrity parties ever was the new Addams family. So I had to tune in. So those were 3 shows that I've really been enjoying the last little while.
Mhm.
Yellowstone is one I haven't gotten into yet, but I feel like I have to watch it now because I
Quite good.
just went to Montana in February. And people kept asking me, "Oh, do you watch Yellowstone?" Because where we were doing this driving experience with Infinity Cars was actually on one of the primary shooting locations of the show, which is the
Oh, okay.
Yellowstone Airport.
Yeah.
So now I feel like I've got to tune in.
It's so good. And I've got Ray Donovan on the back burner as well. I've been told that that's like insanely good.
Oh, okay. I haven't tuned into that one. Who's in that one? I feel like I know this show,
I don't remember the actor's name. I'm really, really good with bands and and
but okay.
artists. Not so
Yeah.
good on the actors and actresses and all that world, but
Okay.
definitely a recognizable guy. Like as soon as you see him, you'd be like, Todd, come on, you should know that guy.
Yeah, no, I feel like I know who you're talking about, but his name is just like escaping me, but I can see his face right now.
Yeah. What was
Yeah.
the last movie you saw in theater?
Oh gosh, it would have definitely been at a premiere or a screening. I want to say that it was Shotgun Wedding with
Mm,
Jennifer Lopez, and I loved that movie. I thought it was her best film in years. I was laughing so hard. Like I can't remember the last time I laughed that hard in a theater. Just like everything about it, from it being
Wow.
like an action comedy to the script. So that was, I believe, the last one that I actually like stayed for the screening, obviously, because I'm such a Jennifer Lopez stan.
Yeah.
And that was just also like a bucket list experience because it was my first time actually seeing her in person.
Yeah.
But not only her then, and just like getting to experience being around them on a red carpet in the screening room and then going to the after party. But that was the last film I actually saw physically in the theater.
You must see a ton though too, right? That's part of the job.
It is. I mean, sometimes we'll do like the carpets and we won't necessarily stay for the screenings, just depending on like, what the evening looks like, or if there's other events, or, sometimes we have to turn around the interviews on a quicker time basis to get them up that night. So it really is just like on a case by case basis.
Mm,
But yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like I don't watch as much as I used to. But I also think it's because I have so many balls in the air, because outside of Hollywood life, I've kept a really active hand in the Canadian press. So I,
mm,
feel like I often will have like a deadline for a Daily Hive or a Nouveau magazine or something like that. And as a sidebar, I've also been working on a video game for the last 16 months. So that's like a 2 hour a day thing. But I sometimes feel like Cinderella, like running home from the event because they're in Shanghai time. So I'm trying to get on with them before, it's too late. And the next thing I'm up till 3 a.m. So I
mm.
think it's just been quite the balancing act, doing all of these different things, and obviously traveling as much as I do. So a lot of the time for me, it just kind of depends on the day and depends on, what the schedule looks like.
What's this video game about? That's cool.
Yeah, it's in beta, so it's not actually out yet. It's going to be very similar to like a Kim Kardashian Hollywood situation.
Mm,
So in the game, you're trying to make it as a famous actor, and there's a big fashion and beauty component to it. So I've been helping out with the scripting and the storyline, and then also styling the fashion looks and the makeup looks for the character as she goes from being a college student to an A-list actor. So it's
mm.
been a really fun, really different, and yet also very lucrative experience for me. And I started working on that at the end of 2021. I don't have any experience in the gaming background, but it's been a blast because it totally leverages all of my previous experience in broadcast and writing about fashion, and then also being in Hollywood, because they really wanted someone who understood the ins and outs of red carpet events and the award shows and all of that jazz. So
Cool.
yeah, it's been a really fun, interesting role for sure, and probably more different than anything else I've ever done.
Sure. It's like, were you a gamer kid?
Yeah, yes and no. I was of the first generation that ever had a PlayStation. So I had the PlayStation 1, and I was obsessed with the first ever version of Spyro the Dragon. And my other claim to fame in the gaming world is I did have a Game Boy Color, and it took me years to finish the Super Mario World 1985 original game on there. So
Mm,
I would play it like all day, every day during my summers. And I feel like that was pretty consistent through like 99 to 2003 or something. And it took me that long to actually like finish the game. So I had a few. I wouldn't say that I was like necessarily the biggest gaming kid, but those were like my two games. And then when I would go over to my cousin, she had the Super Nintendo World. So we would play that there.
oh yeah. Yeah. I was always a big gamer as a kid. So does your world spill into the like concert world as well? Like, you going to many shows in LA?
Not so much lately. I grew up going to a lot of different concerts. Like I was a really big concert goer just as a kid and teen. Now I'm a little more selective just because I feel like I've seen a lot of the big acts that I've kind of wanted to see.
Mm,
Although recently I was invited to see Usher's, it was, I guess, his reopening of his residency because he was there last year, then returned in February. And that was incredible. He's obviously such a talented guy, and I grew up with his music, so it was a good way back Wednesday for me. But yeah, I was singing along to every word of that one. But in terms of just like going to shows on a regular basis, I don't think that's so much the case anymore.
mm,
I am very excited, however, about Janet Jackson's new tour, so I'll definitely be checking that out because I was always a really big fan of hers as a kid in the 90s. And my mom had Design of a Decade, which was like my favorite tape to listen to on repeat as a little kid. So
that's exciting. Um,
yeah.
what I had something I wanted to ask as well. Like all the sporting games and stuff. Like you want to go into the Kings? Are you a big sports fan or?
I'm actually not. I'm like the definition of a fickle Vancouver sports fan. And to be quite frank with you, the Vancouver Canucks really crushed me in 2011. And I think just because I was there for that gold medal win while I was in university, I was interning at Citizen PR at the time and working on the Olympics. The following year, I was living in Los Angeles interning at CBS, and I made my family fly me home for that week when we were about to possibly win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
And then we lost and rioted. And I feel like ever since then, it just
kind of left
it was a no-go.
The taste in your mouth, did it?
It just was so emotionally devastating as a fan that I was like, I don't think I can ever put all of my eggs in this basket again. So I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily a Kings fan. I'll still always root for the Canucks, but I don't know that I will ride as hard as I did in 2011.
Yeah, no more ride or die.
No, it was a heartbreaking moment.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, so just no class, zero class. The city is something else. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up with one last question and kind of just talk to you about Turks and Caicos. You just
Yeah.
vacation there, right? Like,
I
how
was actually
crazy
there
is
in
that?
August.
Like, I have wanted to go there, bucket list forever.
Turks and Caicos is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. So the way that trip came up, actually, it was a music connection as I was actually out there for a show that 98 Degrees was doing, and I got to interview the guys.
Oh, cool.
And I had also been like networking with the Amman resorts that are incredible. I'm sure you've seen like the Amangiri on Instagram. That seems to be like every influencer's favorite place to go, but people don't know that they have these other resorts, including the Amaniara, which is in the Turks and Caicos, which is hands down the most exquisite, most amazing property I've ever stayed at. I wrote about it for Nouveau, and the piece was such a labor of love. I think I missed the deadline 2 times because I was just like, I can't even find the words to describe this place. But like everything about it was just like a fantasy, like the water being like bath water warm, and you just like be able to walk out into the ocean.
Turquoise, and it just is soft, silky sand. Like, oh
yeah, like it's hard for me because I'm just doing so many things all the time, and I often will like be at a place like that and on my laptop and I'm still kind of working. But I truly felt like, even though I was doing a bit of that on Sundays, that I really was able to relax and I was really on vacation. And that was my first time there. And just as a sidebar, Drake was actually staying at the property at the same time as me. So he was in the villa directly next door to me with Popcan, Yachty, and Kevin Durant, which I still think is hilarious. Wow. So yeah, what are the chances coast to coast Canadians next door to each other at the Amaniara?
Yeah. So how long were you there for? Like a week?
I was there for a week total on the combined trip. So I was at the Amaniara for a couple nights, and then I was at the beaches resort for the rest of it, which was super fun. So for people with families and kids, I would highly recommend. That's probably the nicest all-inclusive that I've ever seen. Like I hesitate to even use the word all-inclusive because I feel like it was like so much more than that. But yeah, Turks and Caicos, couldn't recommend it more. One of the best trips I've ever been on. So if you want a true vacation and you actually want to relax, that's somewhere to go.
Mm-hmm. All right. Not to get too deep on you here, but where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Ooh, I think in 5 years, I'll probably lean more into the entrepreneur side of things. I love marketing and branding and the stories that you can tell through building a brand. So I don't know exactly which arena that I would want to go into yet, because obviously there's just so many different things. But I would like to pursue that, I think, more so. And I also think just doing some more producing and getting my name in more credits that way. I think those are two areas that you would probably see me doing more of. But who knows? I like to have my finger in a lot of different pies. So I don't think I'll ever give up the media hat completely. I think I'll always maintain a hand in that, whether it's having like a segment on a morning show or a column or still freelancing. But I think in the next 5 years, you'll definitely see me diversify and launch a business or a brand of some kind.
Cool. Keep kicking ass, buddy. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks, Todd. This was so much fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you again for jumping on the Toddcast. Cassie_Gill on Instagram, Cassie Gill on Twitter. Is there a website you want people to go to, or?
I just have CassieGill.com if you want to see some of my other work.
Awesome. Cassie, have a great day. Thanks for doing this, and we'll see you online.